If you're that guy and you just came off a draw, I think rematching will be the most competitive thing to do as an athlete. With the Jake Paul situation, is like, it's a money grab fight.
Davis was in a bit of a hole, and he gets an opportunity to fight Jake Paul for $200 million or whatever. I don't mind it at all. As long as Gervonta Davis comes back to the world of boxing after he gets done with this, hey man, you got your money, no worries.
The fight draws near as Jake Paul and Gervonta Tank Davis push their training to the limit. Jake focuses on power and size, while Tank sharpens his trademark speed and knockout precision. Both camps are locked in, and with every session the tension rises, leaving fans on edge as they await one of boxing's most talked about showdowns.
I don't get it.
Yeah, this Santa Cruz out here to get you. You can't let it burn, baby, let it burn. Mind over matter, son, mind over matter.
This is the blues on.
Ain't nobody doing no shit like this. Come in the desert. Trying to stay away from the desert, he come in the desert.
Shakur Stevenson shared his take on the rise of unusual boxing matchups. He dismissed fights like Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis as offering little real value to the sport. But when it comes to legends like Floyd Mayweather and Mike Tyson, Stevenson sees it differently. In his view, both men have already cemented their legacies, and if they choose to step back into the ring for a payday, it shouldn't be seen as harmful. Instead, Stevenson argued, those events bring nostalgia and excitement to fans, unlike the celebrity-style exhibitions that risk diluting boxing's credibility.
For the sport of boxing?
I mean, I feel like in Floyd and Tyson's situation is different than Jake Paul and Buddy. I feel like with Floyd and Tyson, it's like, okay, y'all deserve it. Y'all legends, y'all paid homage, y'all did the most for the sport of boxing already. So you deserve a big payday and be cool. I'm cool with it. I like it. But with Jake and Buddy, I feel like Buddy is a participate in the sport of boxing right now, and he just came off a draw his last fight. So if you're a real champion and top level guy that you say you are, which I think you are too, I think you're the truth. But if you're that guy and you just came off a draw, I think rematching will be the most competitive thing to do as an athlete. With the Jake Paul situation, is like, it's a money grab fight. So to me, it's like some WWE shit.
Do you think it helps? Like, I mean, okay, so he gets this fight with Jake. His value goes up.
No, it doesn't.
You don't? It don't?
Not in the sport of boxing.
You don't think
it may.
The demand more because he's, you know, because when we looked at the was a Floyd and
just hypothetical. You know, we speak hypotheticals at time, right? You go in there and that big ass nigga knock him the fuck out. I'm just saying hypothetical. Go in there and knock Tank the fuck out.
That big ass nigga being Jake Paul.
Yes.
Okay, just one.
Knock him the fuck out. Because he's bigger than him.
Yeah.
For one. By chance, it is a fight.
I think the thing is with Buddy and Jake fight, I feel like it's two sides of me with it. Because from a competitive aspect and me being the mentality that I got, I feel as though I probably would have done a rematch.
Yeah.
But then from a business aspect, if I would have done the rematch and I did not win the fight, the Jake Paul fight will be a lot less money and a lot less lucrative. So,
you think so?
From a business aspect, I understand that anybody that with a business mind probably would have took that fight for as much money as it was. So I'm a realist. Like, I ain't going to just bash, bro.
No.
UFC President Dana White didn't hold back when asked about the possible showdown between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. He argued that only a handful of fans were truly excited, yet admitted the fight might actually benefit Davis. At a time when Davis faced heavy public scrutiny and distractions outside the ring, Jake Paul stepped forward, with a financial lifeline. White explained that while many laugh at the event, it could bring Davis fresh exposure and earnings when he needs them most. Then came the shocker. White flatly said Jake Paul could realistically beat Davis. His point wasn't about refined boxing skill, but about raw physicality. Paul carries size, strength, and reach, while Davis, despite his power, is much smaller and used to lighter men. For White, the fight's outcome wouldn't hinge on skill, but on whether Davis could survive Paul's overwhelming natural advantages.
Jake Paul to beat Gervonta Davis. This is not a fight that I'm excited for at all. I would rather have Gervonta Davis fighting in a real boxing match against the likes of Lamont Roach, Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis, Emmanuel Navarrete, anybody that is in the 135-pound division and around. That's where I want to see Gervonta Davis fight. However, we live in a world where everybody is trying to do things as big as possible. And the biggest fights possible right now, unfortunately for the sport of boxing, is an exhibition fight between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. So I do like it for this reason, though. I like it because it is allowing Gervonta Davis to have a fight that is going to be big and that the mainstream media is going to have to cover, the mainstream media outside the world of boxing. Gervonta Davis has been, without a doubt, blocked, having venues blocked, having fighters, having other promoters paying fighters away to go different directions from Gervonta Davis. So Gervonta Davis was in a bit of a hole. And he gets an opportunity to fight Jake Paul for $200 million or whatever. I don't mind it at all. As long as Gervonta Davis comes back to the world of boxing after he gets done with this, hey man, you got your money, no worries. But you gotta love Dana White having the audacity to pick Jake Paul in this fight.
Former world champion Paulie Malignaggi gave his candid view on the idea of Terrence Crawford facing Jake Paul. He praised Crawford as one of the most gifted fighters in modern boxing, but warned that size can sometimes outweigh skill. Malignaggi reminded fans that history is filled with smaller champions struggling when they climb too high in weight. In his eyes, Jake Paul's natural frame and raw punching power could create real problems, even for a technician as sharp as Crawford. The issue, Malignaggi stressed, isn't about talent, it's about physical limits. Boxing is still a sport where size, strength, and durability matter, and even Crawford's adaptability may not be enough to erase such a significant disadvantage.
I think Davis is more to lose because he's the bona fide world champion. I don't care if he's much smaller. I think Jake Paul has sort of plateaued as far as where his boxing is concerned. It's rather low level. Yeah. He's big, he's physical, he's strong, he can hit. So there is that risk. Davis, at lightweight, you're in a moment where it's too physical for you. You can clinch. Against the heavyweight, where you clinching? You ain't getting out of that corner just clinching anymore if you run out of space. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. But Davis, listen, there's a lot of talking points that I'm sure we'll get into when this gets closer to the fight. Davis can still punch at lightweight. Can he drop a heavyweight? There's a lot to gain there, right? If Davis knocks
the answer is yes.
If Davis drops Jake on his ass, as much as Davis is the one with more to lose, it's still a highlight moment.
A visual that will stay forever.
Yeah. But if you get dropped, even if you're smaller, you're still a world champion, multiple weight classes. If you get dropped, what's the look? What's the feel? On the inside, as boxers, me and Chris Algieri, the champ, even you, Jimmy, you have fight experience, so we know that the risk is a big guy that big hits you. You're probably going down if you're a small guy if he hits you clean. So we know the risk, but how does it look to the public eye who don't understand that? You know what I mean? The public. So there is a lot to lose, though. There's a bit to gain. I wouldn't necessarily have an issue with this had Davis's career arc been one that benefited boxing. Davis was manufactured and put into a position where he's supposed to benefit boxing, and I don't think he has. I think he's hurt boxing. So by giving him this reward, that's my problem. Why are we watching this? Why don't you make him earn his spot that he still hasn't earned?
Analysts revealed that organizers had to make a major change when the original venue refused to host the much-hyped matchup. Local officials dismissed it as more circus than sport, flatly denying approval. The move stunned many, since the first location seemed perfect to pull a huge crowd and deliver massive revenue. But instead of scrapping or stalling, promoters scrambled fast to secure a new arena that welcomed the spectacle. Within days, a fresh site was locked in, keeping the event alive. Still, the sudden shift stirred doubts about the fight's credibility. Critics asked, if such a prestigious stage rejected it, how much sporting value could it really hold? To them, this battlefield driven by money and showbiz more than genuine merit. The relocation itself became a headline, adding fuel to the larger debate. Do these crossover clashes truly belong in boxing at all?
35 pounds. Jake Paul is over 50 pounds heavier than Gervonta Tank Davis, and he's nearly a foot taller than Gervonta Tank Davis. So no sanction body wants to, and no commission wants to, should I say, I keep saying sanction body, no commission wants to sanction it. They don't want to be a part of it, as I told you guys. So they announced that the fight was going to take place November 14th in Atlanta at the State Farm Arena where the Atlanta Hawks play. And the Georgia Athletic Commission, he came out and he made a serious statement. And he let the world know that they falsely advertised this fight, okay? Because no commission won't sanction it to be a real boxing match, let alone they're not even interested in allowing it to be an exhibition. Okay? They don't even want it to be, they don't even want to be responsible for an exhibition of this magnitude, right? So he comes out and he says, the commissioner, head of the Georgia Commission, he comes out, he says, quote, I believe it's in the public's interest to know because they've been promoting something they should not have been promoting. It's the dumbest thing I ever heard. It's a money grabber, and I'm not okay with that. So they telling him it's just for the money.
Retired champion Froch weighed in, branding Jake Paul's boxing career as one built entirely on money. Froch argued that Paul isn't chasing legacy or greatness, but cash-driven opportunities. In his view, every opponent Jake picks is chosen for headlines and paydays, not for presenting the hardest challenge. Froch admitted the formula works when it comes to hype and marketing, but insisted it blocks Paul from ever earning true respect inside the sport.
He mentioned me before, and there'll be people out there saying, oh, Froch's talking about himself, he's after a payday. Listen, I'm not after a payday. I'm doing all right. There's no problems with my finances. But I'll take the fucking payday, of course I will. And I'll end Jake Paul with one punch. I'd go in there one-armed and beat this guy. He can't box. He's absolutely fucking useless, which we saw last night with Mike Tyson. Talking about Canelo Alvarez. I've not mentioned Canelo Alvarez because it's just laughable. Jake Paul, Canelo Alvarez. Can you imagine? I mean, if Jake Paul fancies that and he jumps in the ring with him, I will pay homage to him because fair play. If he jumps in there with Canelo Alvarez, he'll get absolutely fucking destroyed and it will be fast and it will be messy and it will be bad for his health as well, potentially.
MMA star Nate Diaz brushed the matchup aside, refusing to even give a prediction. To Diaz, the fight isn't a true contest, but a spectacle crafted only for pay-per-view numbers. He blasted boxing's new direction, arguing that relying on staged events like this only erodes the sport's credibility. In his eyes, these matchups aren't about competition at all, but pure profit. And for that reason, Diaz said he simply can't regard them as real sporting events.
I gotta ask you, Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis. Does Davis have a chance?
Gervonta is a great boxer, but he ain't gonna do.
So you got Jake Paul by knockout, or?
No, I don't got anybody, but I don't think.
He's just too small.
I don't want to beat up somebody that small. I don't want to, you know what I'm saying?
What do you think of the fight?
I don't want to lose to somebody that. There's no point in the fight. It's a great fight, actually.
You think
I'm
it's a
not
good
hating
fight?
on the fight, but I think My thoughts on it is let's watch and see what happens.
Ryan Garcia said that boxing's turning into WWE.
Yeah, that's
with that type of matchup. What do you agree? Last thing, White House card, like he said, you want Conor McGregor?
Yeah, but the whole thing's on WWE, so
right.
It's like, at least that's happening and it's getting something to talk about, something to watch, and I'm looking forward to that fight actually.
One of the most debated aspects of the proposed matchup between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis centers on the glaring difference in size and physical attributes. Jake Paul, who has already faced larger opponents and naturally carries far more weight, enters with a clear edge in height, reach, and overall frame. By contrast, Gervonta Davis stands at just 5'5" and usually competes around 130 pounds, where his explosiveness and knockout power have made him one of the sport's most feared punchers. Against fighters of similar size, Tank's ability to close distance and end fights with a single shot has defined his career. But against someone as physically imposing as Paul, questions emerge. Can his power truly level the playing field? Analysts warn that Davis may struggle to get inside without absorbing heavy counters from the bigger man, who can use his frame to control distance. And so the debate rages on. Can speed and skill outweigh such a massive physical disadvantage? Or does the size gap tilt the fight into dangerous territory rather than competitive balance?
Holy shit, Jake Paul versus Tank Davis is actually happening. What the f is going on? I guess Tank is going broke because that's the only justifiable reason you ruin your legacy against a guy like Jake Paul. And yes, I do think Jake Paul is going to win. Tank Davis is a much better boxer and has crazy power, but he's 5'5", 130. That power is not going to carry over against someone who is 6'1", 210. And it's not like Jake is bad. Yes, his fights are boring. He says he's going to step in the ring and sleep his opponents, but the only people who end up sleeping are the audience. Mike Tyson fight. But at the end of the day, he's a big guy with power who's training boxing full time, and he has beaten some legitimate competition. Woodley, Nate Diaz, Anderson Silva, Mike Perry had a competitive fight with Tommy Fury. But it's crazy how particular Jake has to be when selecting his opponents. They have to have enough clout to be interesting, enough skill to be taken seriously as a threat, but at the same time have clear weaknesses and disadvantages that Jake and his team can exploit to win. Now that he's fighting an elite boxer, he has to fight someone 7 weight classes down. I mean, Tank could win if he makes Jake do a very aggressive weight cut, but I just don't see that happening. I got Jake by 3rd round TKO. He should put me on the co-main event and allow me to fight Francis Ngannou. That would be an easy first round knockout for my
fans and analysts alike have grown frustrated with the way unusual fights keep stealing the spotlight in recent years. The proposed clash between Jake Paul and Davis has become a prime example of this troubling trend. Instead of celebrating meaningful contests that crown champions or settle long-standing rivalries, promoters now push spectacles that blur the line between sport and pure entertainment. Critics argue this shift chips away at boxing's proud tradition and leaves purists disappointed, as they long for competitive battles that showcase true talent rather than headline-grabbing events built only for attention.
So breaking news, Jake Paul will be taking on Tank Davis in an exhibition on November 15th in Atlanta, Georgia, live on Netflix. And this is crazy for multiple reasons. One, they have a huge size difference. Tank Davis, he's a lightweight, normally fights at 135 pounds. And Jake Paul, he's a cruiserweight, usually fights at 200 pounds. So there's a good 60 to 65 pound difference here. It could also mean that Tank Davis is no longer interested in competing for titles anymore and is cashing out of boxing. You know, there's been a lot of talks that Tank is nearing retirement this year, and he was supposed to rematch Lamar Roach after their first fight went to a draw. But instead of chasing the Roach rematch, instead he takes the Jake Paul fight for money. So maybe this is Tank's last, or one of his last fights. And same for Jake Paul. He just got ranked number 14 at cruiserweight after beating Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. So he's supposed to be fighting other ranked contenders or top guys at cruiserweight. But instead, he's taking a money fight. But I do expect these two to go after each other. Even though it is an exhibition, I don't think it'll just be some boring sparring match. I do think they'll try a decent amount. But Tank, obviously, is a lot more skilled. Jake, he has a lot more size. But you guys let me know who you got.
An analyst reflecting on the rise of the Paul brothers explained that their blueprint has always centered on capturing attention. He noted that Logan and Jake never worry about critics, since every controversy only adds fuel to their fire. Whether they're praised or mocked, the brothers manage to dominate the conversation by staging events designed to divide opinion. From this perspective, their selection of opponents isn't about building boxing glory, but about making headlines. And in the end, their talent for staying in the spotlight is what guarantees their lasting presence in the sport, no matter how fans feel.
It's like blockbuster events. They don't look at them as sporting events. They look at them as spectacle. I mean, Logan's in the fucking WWE, for God's sake. That's the way they look at it. And that's the way Jake looks at these kind of events. He does, because he's fighting Gervonta Davis. And to any sports, hardcore, competition, morale, effort, legacy, hierarchy-minded sports person, none of it makes any sense. Because we go, well, no, Gervonta is not in Jake's weight class. What does that prove? We do sport to prove who's better at sport, not with inherent advantages or disadvantages or XYZ. Logan, and I guess Jake for that matter, look at these like, we want to get the most eyes possible regardless of what people say. And I think that Logan and Jake both believe this, because of the disadvantages we came into the sport with, if we are to do better than people expected, or if we're able to win or knock someone out, then we're better, which is not true, because there's massive disadvantages on the other end. I would say that outweigh the disadvantages on their end, at least Jake's end. The way they market these things and act like if I beat Gervonta, I'm better, or if Logan was like, I beat Floyd and I'm the best boxer in the world, when Floyd wasn't the best boxer when Logan fought him, and also it was a 60-pound weight difference. Like, the way they categorize and narrative shape around it is the thing people get upset about.
That's it for today's video. Stay tuned. Until next time.